The morning sun cast long shadows across forward operating base shank as Chief Warrant Officer 3 Callister Ghost. Reeves methodically cleaned the nose cone of her AH-64D Apache longbow. Her movements were precise, deliberate, the kind of ritual that comes from years of muscle memory and military discipline. Most personnel barely noticed the slight woman in flight coveralls, assuming she was just another maintenance tech preparing the bird for the day's mission. They were wrong. At 5:47 hours, the base erupted into controlled chaos. Emergency claxons pierced the thin mountain air as red lights bathed the flight line in an ominous glow. Intelligence reports had just confirmed what everyone feared. A 12-man Navy SEAL reconnaissance team, call sign Trident 6, had gone dark in the Korangal Valley. Their last known position placed them deep in Taliban territory, surrounded by hostile forces in terrain so treacherous it had earned the nickname Valley of Death. Ghost continued her pre-flight inspection, her weathered hands checking every rivet and wire with practiced efficiency. Around her, the base transformed from sleepy morning routine to full combat readiness. Soldiers sprinted between buildings, their boots echoing off concrete as urgent radio chatter filled the air. The familiar weight of her flight helmet hung from her left hand while her right traced the Apache's armored skin, feeling for any imperfection that could prove fatal at altitude. "We need immediate close air support for Trident 6, barked Colonel Marcus Webb, the base commander, his voice cutting through the mechanical noise of spinning rotors and diesel generators. "Taliban forces have them pinned down in a box canyon. Estimate 40 to 60 hostiles with RPGs and heavy machine guns." Ghost's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She'd flown combat missions in 3 different theaters, accumulated over 2,400 flight hours in the Apache, and had never lost a ground team under her protection. Her call sign wasn't just military humor. It referred to her uncanny ability to appear and disappear from battlefields like a specter, striking fear into enemy hearts while becoming a guardian angel for American forces below. The maintenance chief approached, clipboard in hand. "Aircraft 6128 is green across the board, ma'am. All systems nominal." His voice carried the respectful tone reserved for pilots who'd proven themselves in blood and fire. Ghost nodded, accepting the aircraft logbook with steady hands that had guided missiles through mountain passes and threaded 30 cannon rounds between friendly and enemy positions with surgical precision. As she climbed into the front seat of the Apache, Ghost's fingers found the small photograph tucked beside her instrument panel, a reminder of why every mission mattered, why bringing everyone home wasn't just duty but sacred obligation. Today, 12 SEALs were counting on her skills, her judgment, and her willingness to fly into hell itself. She wouldn't disappoint them. The twin turboshaft engines began their familiar whine as Ghost initiated the startup sequence. Within minutes, she would lift off into the unforgiving Afghan sky, carrying enough firepower to level city blocks but requiring the delicate touch of a surgeon to save American lives trapped in the Valley of Death. The morning's routine maintenance was over. Now came the real work. Ghost keyed her radio with calm authority. "Tower, Apache 06128 requesting immediate departure for close air support mission. Trident 6 is in trouble, and I'm their ride home." The confidence in her voice belied the gravity of what lay ahead, a mission that would test every skill she'd honed over 15 years of military aviation. Unknown to the base personnel watching her taxi toward the runway, Ghost was about to demonstrate why her call sign had become legend among special operations forces throughout Afghanistan. The SEALs of Trident 6 didn't know it yet, but their salvation was approaching at 180 knots, armed with Hellfire missiles, and piloted by a woman who had never met a mission she couldn't complete. The Apache lifted off into the crystal-clear morning sky, its rotor blades slicing through air that would soon be filled with tracer rounds, explosions, and the desperate calls of men fighting for their lives. Ghost banked hard toward the Korangal Valley, her aircraft becoming a dark speck against the towering peaks of the Hindu Kush Mountains. In her headset, The familiar crackle of combat frequencies began to fill with urgent transmissions. All stations, this is Overlord. We have multiple teams converging on Trident 6's position. Apache 06128 is inbound for immediate close air support. Time on target, 15 minutes. The controller's voice carried the tension that permeated every rescue operation. Too many variables, too little time, and American lives hanging in the balance. Ghost adjusted her flight path, threading between mountain peaks with the confidence that came from hundreds of similar missions. Her hands moved across the instrument panel with practiced efficiency, arming weapon systems and configuring targeting displays. The Apache's sophisticated sensors began painting a picture of the battlefield ahead. Heat signatures, radio intercepts, and satellite imagery combining to create a three-dimensional understanding of the tactical situation. Below, the Korangal Valley stretched out like a moonscape of rocky ridges and deep ravines. Somewhere in that maze of stone and shadow, 12 Navy SEALs were fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds. Taliban fighters had chosen their ambush site well, high ground on three sides with only one narrow escape route that was surely covered by enemy fire. It was a killing box, designed to trap American forces and eliminate them with concentrated firepower. Ghost's radio crackled to life with a transmission that would change everything. Any station, this is Trident 6 Actual. We are taking heavy fire and need immediate extraction. Multiple casualties, running low on ammunition. Request immediate close air support, danger close authorization granted. The voice belonged to Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison, a SEAL Team 6 veteran whose calm demeanor under fire had become legendary among Special Operations Forces. Trident 6 Actual, this is Apache 06128. I'm 5 minutes out from your position. Can you mark your location with infrared strobes? Ghost's voice carried the kind of steady confidence that could calm panicked ground forces and strike fear into enemy hearts. She'd been in this situation countless times before, American forces surrounded, outgunned, and dependent on her skills for survival. The reply came immediately. Ghost, is that really you? Morrison's voice carried a mixture of relief and disbelief that spoke to Ghost's reputation among the special operations community. Boys, we're going to be just fine. Ghost is inbound. Through her targeting system, Ghost began to identify enemy positions, muzzle flashes from automatic weapons, heat signatures of fighters moving between rocky cover, and the distinctive thermal bloom of an RPG launcher being prepared for firing. The Taliban had committed significant resources to this ambush, probably hoping to eliminate an entire SEAL team and score a major propaganda victory. They hadn't counted on facing one of the most skilled attack helicopter pilots in the United States military. Ghost's hands tightened on the flight controls as she approached the target area. Her Apache's nose cone, the same surface she'd been methodically cleaning just 20 minutes earlier, now housed sophisticated targeting systems that could place ordnance within inches of friendly forces. The irony wasn't lost on her that something so mundane as aircraft maintenance had preceded what promised to be one of the most challenging missions of her career. The radio erupted with urgent traffic as multiple aircraft and ground units converged on the Korangal Valley. Ghost filtered through the chaos, focusing on the transmissions that mattered, Trident 6's position, enemy locations, and the increasingly desperate requests for immediate fire support. 12 of America's finest warriors were counting on her ability to bring overwhelming firepower to bear against their attackers while avoiding friendly casualties in the confined terrain below. As Ghost crested the final ridge before entering the valley, she caught her first visual of the battlefield. Smoke columns rose from multiple positions, tracer rounds crisscrossed the ravines like deadly fireworks, and the distinctive crack of rifle fire echoed off rocky walls. Somewhere in that hellscape, 12 SEALs were making their last stand against a force that outnumbered them 5-1. Ghost keyed her radio with the calm authority that had earned respect from every ground unit she'd ever supported. Trident 6 Actual, this is Ghost. I have eyes on your position. Stand by for immediate fire mission. We're bringing you home today." Her words carried the weight of a promise that she'd kept dozens of times before. No American left behind, no matter the cost. The Apache dove toward the valley floor like a mechanical predator, its weapon systems acquiring targets with lethal precision. Ghost's war was about to begin in earnest, and she intended to remind the Taliban why attacking American special forces was a fatal mistake. The morning's routine maintenance was a distant memory now, replaced by the immediate demands of combat and the sacred duty of protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Through her headset, Ghost heard the unmistakable sound of SEAL Team 6 preparing for the fight of their lives. Master Chief Morrison's voice cut through the radio chatter. "All Trident elements, Ghost is inbound hot. Prepare to mark targets and get ready to move when she clears us a path." The confidence in his voice reflected years of experience working with the best pilots in the military, professionals who could deliver precision firepower in the most challenging conditions. Ghost's targeting display lit up like a Christmas tree as her Apache sensors identified multiple enemy positions throughout the valley. Taliban fighters had established overlapping fields of fire, creating a death trap that would normally require hours of careful planning to assault. Ghost had minutes to assess the situation, prioritize targets, and execute a fire mission that would break the ambush without hitting friendly forces. It was the kind of challenge that separated good pilots from legends. The sun climbed higher over the Korangal Valley as Ghost prepared to demonstrate why her call sign had become synonymous with salvation among Special Operations Forces. Her Apache hung in the thin mountain air like a lethal angel, ready to deliver judgment upon those who dared threaten American warriors. Below, 12 SEALs waited for the distinctive sound of third-aim cannon fire that would signal the beginning of their rescue. Ghost's fingers moved across her weapon controls with surgical precision, selecting the appropriate ordnance for each target while calculating blast effects and debris patterns. The Taliban fighters might have chosen their ambush site well, but they had made one fatal miscalculation. They had picked a fight with American forces protected by one of the most skilled attack helicopter pilots to ever strap into an Apache. Their numerical advantage was about to become irrelevant in the face of overwhelming air power guided by expert hands. The radio crackled again as additional units reported their positions and readiness to support the rescue operation. Ghost filtered through the communications, maintaining awareness of the overall tactical picture while focusing on her primary mission, eliminating the immediate threat to Trident 6. Her years of combat experience allowed her to process multiple streams of information simultaneously, creating a comprehensive understanding of the battlefield that would guide her target selection and engagement sequence. As Ghost initiated her attack run, she reflected on the path that had brought her to this moment: years of training, hundreds of combat missions, and countless hours of dedication to mastering the most sophisticated attack helicopter in the world. Every lesson learned, every skill developed, and every challenge overcome had prepared her for missions exactly like this one. 12 American warriors needed her expertise, and she would deliver it with deadly precision. The Apache's rotors carved through the morning air as Ghost positioned herself for the first engagement. Her targeting systems had identified priority threats: machine gun nests that commanded the SEAL's position, RPG teams preparing to fire, and groups of Taliban fighters moving to flank the trapped Americans. Each target required different tactics, different weapons, and different approaches to minimize collateral damage while maximizing effectiveness against enemy forces. Ghost keyed her radio one final time before opening fire. "Trident 6, this is Ghost. Danger close fire mission commencing in 30 seconds. Keep your heads down and prepare to move on my command. We're coming to get you." Her voice carried the calm confidence of a professional warrior about to demonstrate why American military aviation dominated battlefields worldwide. The Taliban fighters below had chosen their fight poorly. They were about to face the fury of an Apache helicopter, piloted by a woman who had never failed to bring her people home. The morning maintenance routine seemed like a lifetime ago, as Ghost squeezed the trigger and sent the first 30 rounds screaming toward enemy positions. The real work had begun, and Master Chief Morrison's SEALs were about to witness why Ghost's call sign had become legend throughout the special operations community. The woman who had been quietly wiping down nose cones was about to remind everyone why underestimating her was a fatal mistake. In the Korangal Valley below, explosions began to blossom across Taliban positions as Ghost's precision fire found its marks. The ambush that had seemed so perfectly planned was rapidly disintegrating under the devastating accuracy of American air power. 12 Navy SEALs prepared to fight their way to safety, protected by overhead cover that had already proven its worth dozens of times in similar situations. Ghost's Apache had arrived, and the tide of battle was about to turn decisively in favor of the trapped American forces. The sun continued its climb over the Afghan mountains as Ghost pressed her attack, methodically eliminating threats while maintaining perfect situational awareness of friendly positions. Her years of experience guided every decision, every shot placement, and every tactical maneuver. The Taliban fighters who had planned such a careful ambush were discovering that American military professionalism could overcome even the most advantageous terrain when applied with skill and determination. Through her targeting optics, Ghost watched enemy fighters scrambling for new positions as their carefully prepared ambush collapsed under sustained precision fire. Some Taliban elements were already withdrawing from the valley, recognizing that their tactical situation had become untenable in the face of accurate close air support. Those who remained would soon learn why Ghost's reputation preceded her into every combat zone where American forces operated. Master Chief Morrison's voice cut through the radio chatter with professional calm. "Ghost, this is Trident 6 Actual. Outstanding shooting. We can see a clear path to Extraction Point Alpha. Request continued overwatch as we displace." The relief in his voice was carefully controlled but unmistakable. Ghost's intervention had transformed a desperate last stand into an organized withdrawal under protective fire. Ghost adjusted her flight pattern to maintain visual contact with the moving SEALs while scanning for remaining threats throughout the valley. Her Apache sensors continued to identify heat signatures and movement patterns, ensuring that no enemy forces could reorganize for a counterattack during the extraction. The mission was far from over, but the immediate crisis had been resolved through the application of superior firepower and tactical expertise. As the SEALs began their movement toward the extraction point, Ghost reflected on the strange morning that had begun with routine maintenance and evolved into life-or-death combat. Her methodical cleaning of the Apache's nose cone had been preparation for this moment, ensuring that every system functioned perfectly when American lives depended on her skills. The mundane and the heroic were often separated by mere minutes in military aviation. The radio traffic began to stabilize as the tactical situation improved, but Ghost maintained her vigilant overwatch of the extraction route. Taliban fighters were still present throughout the valley, and any one of them could pose a threat to the withdrawing SEALs. Her Apache remained ready to deliver immediate fire support at any point during the movement, providing the kind of protection that allowed Special Operations Forces to operate in hostile territory with acceptable risk levels. Through her headset, Ghost monitored communications between various supporting elements as additional assets moved into position to assist with the extraction. The initial crisis response had evolved into a coordinated operation involving multiple aircraft, ground units, and intelligence assets. Her role remained critical, providing continuous close air support until every American warrior was safely clear of the valley. Ghost's hands remained steady on the flight controls as she maintained her protective orbit above the moving SEALs. Years of combat flying had taught her that successful missions required sustained attention to detail long after the initial crisis had passed. Enemy forces could regroup quickly, new threats could emerge from unexpected directions, and mechanical problems could develop at the worst possible moments. Professional vigilance was the price of bringing everyone home alive. The morning sun climbed higher over the Korangal Valley as Ghost continued her Overwatch mission, ready to deliver immediate fire support if the tactical situation deteriorated. Her Apache's fuel gauges showed sufficient reserves for extended operations, and her weapon systems remained fully operational. The Taliban fighters scattered throughout the valley would find no opportunities to threaten American forces, while Ghost maintained her protective presence overhead. Master Chief Morrison's next transmission carried the kind of professional satisfaction that came from successful operations under fire. Ghost, Trident 6 Actual. We're at extraction point Alpha and ready for pickup. Your shooting today was absolutely surgical. Couldn't have asked for better support. The compliment meant more than any formal commendation, because it came from operators who understood the difference between adequate and exceptional performance under combat conditions. Ghost acknowledged the transmission while scanning her instruments for any system abnormalities that might affect the remainder of the mission. Her Apache had performed flawlessly during the engagement, delivering precise fire support without mechanical problems or weapons malfunctions. The morning's careful maintenance had ensured that every critical system operated within specifications when American lives depended on reliability and accuracy. As extraction helicopters approached the valley to collect the SEALs, Ghost expanded her protective orbit to cover the landing zone and departure routes. Taliban forces might attempt to interfere with the pickup operation using long-range weapons or indirect fire. Her Apache's sensors remained active, searching for any threat that could endanger the evacuation helicopters during their vulnerable approach and departure phases. The radio crackled with coordination traffic as multiple aircraft maneuvered in the confined valley airspace. Ghost maintained precise position awareness while continuing to monitor for ground threats throughout the area. Her years of combat experience allowed her to process complex airspace management requirements while simultaneously tracking potential enemy activities across multiple sectors of the battlefield. Through her targeting optics, Ghost observed the extraction helicopters landing at Point Alpha and beginning the process of loading the SEALs. The operation was proceeding smoothly, but she remained ready to provide immediate fire support if enemy forces attempted to interfere. Taliban fighters had demonstrated their willingness to engage American aircraft during previous extraction operations, making continued vigilance essential throughout the mission. The morning's events had demonstrated once again why precision aviation support remained critical to special operations success. Ghost's intervention had transformed a potentially catastrophic situation into a routine extraction, saving 12 American lives through the application of superior training and equipment. Her Apache had functioned exactly as designed, a precision weapons platform capable of delivering devastating firepower under expert control. As the extraction helicopters lifted off with their precious cargo, Ghost felt the familiar satisfaction that came from successful combat missions. 12 Navy SEALs would return to base because her skills and dedication had been available when needed most. The morning that had begun with routine maintenance had evolved into another chapter in her growing legend among special operations forces throughout Afghanistan. Master Chief Morrison's final transmission of the mission carried heartfelt appreciation. Ghost, this is Trident 6 Actual. We owe you our lives today. Your reputation is well-deserved, and we're honored to have had your support. Until next time, Trident 6 out. The words reflected the deep respect that Special Operations Forces held for pilots who consistently delivered exceptional performance under the most challenging conditions. Ghost maintained her protective orbit until the extraction helicopters were well clear of the valley and any remaining threats. Her Apache's fuel state remained adequate for the return flight to base, and all systems continued to operate within normal parameters. The mission had been successful in every measurable aspect. No friendly casualties, enemy forces neutralized, and objectives accomplished according to plan. As she turned toward home, Ghost reflected on the morning's events and the narrow margin that often separated routine duties from life-or-death situations. Her careful maintenance of the Apache systems had directly contributed to mission success by ensuring that every weapon and sensor functioned perfectly when needed. The connection between mundane preparation and heroic action was never lost on professional aviators. The Koringal Valley fell behind as Ghost's Apache climbed toward the mountain ridges that separated the battlefield from forward operating base Shank. The radio traffic began to diminish as various units returned to their bases and normal operations resumed. Ghost's war was far from over. There would be other missions, other emergencies, and other opportunities to demonstrate why her call sign had become synonymous with salvation among American forces. The sun reached its zenith over the Afghan landscape as Ghost approached her home base, carrying the satisfaction of another successful mission and the knowledge that 12 American warriors would see their families again. Her Apache's rotors carved through the thin air with mechanical precision, carrying a pilot whose reputation had grown with each successful engagement against enemy forces. Ground control cleared Ghost for landing as she entered the base traffic pattern, beginning the transition from combat operations to routine garrison duties. Her Apache would require post-mission maintenance checks, weapons system inspections, and refueling before being declared ready for the next emergency. The cycle of preparation and action that defined military aviation would continue uninterrupted. As Ghost settled her Apache onto the landing pad and began the shutdown sequence, maintenance crews approached to begin their detailed inspections. The aircraft that had delivered salvation to 12 trapped SEALs would soon return to routine status, ready for whatever missions lay ahead. Ghost's war continued with each sunrise, each emergency call, and each opportunity to prove that American military aviation remained unmatched in skill and dedication. The maintenance chief who had cleared her aircraft that morning approached with his logbook, ready to document the mission and any issues that required attention. Ghost's Apache had performed flawlessly throughout the engagement, justifying the careful preparation that preceded every combat sortie. The connection between thorough maintenance and successful missions was never more apparent than during high-stakes rescue operations. Ghost climbed down from her Apache's cockpit and began the post-flight inspection that would identify any damage or wear requiring maintenance attention. Her movements remained methodical and professional despite the emotional intensity of the morning's mission. The discipline that had carried her through the rescue operation continued to guide her actions during the mundane tasks that followed combat. As she completed her inspection and signed the aircraft logbook, Ghost reflected on the morning's dramatic transformation from routine maintenance to combat rescue. The same hands that had carefully cleaned the nose cone had guided precision weapons against enemy forces with surgical accuracy. Military aviation demanded this kind of versatility, the ability to transition instantly from preparation to action when American lives hung in the balance. The base had returned to normal operations by the time Ghost finished her post-mission duties, but word of the successful rescue was already spreading through informal channels. Special operations forces maintained tight-knit communities where news of exceptional performance traveled quickly and reputations were built on consistent delivery under pressure. Ghost's morning's work would add another chapter to her growing legend. As she walked toward the operations center for mission debriefing, Ghost passed other pilots preparing for their own sorties into hostile territory. Each would carry the same responsibilities she had shouldered that morning, protecting American forces, delivering precision firepower, and maintaining the standards that made military aviation the most respected profession in the armed forces. The debriefing session would analyze every aspect of the mission, identifying lessons learned and best practices that could improve future operations. Ghost's tactical decisions, weapon employment, and airspace management would be examined in detail to extract maximum value from the morning's experiences. Military professionalism demanded this kind of continuous improvement through systematic analysis of combat operations. Later that evening, as Ghost prepared her aircraft for the next day's potential missions, she reflected on the strange journey that had brought a small-town girl to become one of the most respected attack helicopter pilots in the United States military. Each mission built upon the last, creating a foundation of experience and skill that enabled her to save lives and accomplish objectives that seemed impossible to outside observers. The Apache that had carried her into combat that morning sat ready for whatever challenges the next day might bring. Its systems had been checked, weapons reloaded, and fuel tanks topped off by the same maintenance professionals who ensured that every American aircraft met the highest standards of readiness. The cycle of preparation and action continued unbroken, ready to respond to the next emergency call. Ghost's call sign had been earned through years of exceptional performance under the most challenging conditions, but each new mission offered opportunities to enhance her reputation further. The SEALs she had rescued that morning would spread word of her skills throughout the special operations community, adding to the legend that preceded her into every combat zone. As darkness fell over forward operating base Shank, Ghost completed her final checks and prepared to rest before the next day's duties. Her Apache stood ready on the flight line, armed and fueled for immediate deployment if another emergency arose during the night. The woman who had begun the day cleaning nose cones had ended it as the savior of 12 American warriors, a transformation that captured the essence of military aviation's noble calling.